Alright guys, we're back staring at my engine bay, and in this video we're going to talk about blow-off valves. And I know a lot of you guys ask about this because maybe you came from another platform where everybody modified their blow-off valves. Maybe you came from an older BMW or other Euro platform where you guys know you need to upgrade your diverter valves in order to run higher boost levels. Or maybe you just kind of want to hear the noises that you're familiar with when you think about turbo cars. So I'm going to talk about how blow-off valves work and what we kind of have on our B58 engine, and then we'll talk about the different options you have to get a blow-off valve for your specific setup. So to start things off, a blow-off valve is something that is really important because as a part of boost management, you need a way to bleed off excess air. So most of you know by now that the turbo itself is what creates all of your boost. The exhaust wheel spins and that makes the intake suck in more air, creates positive air pressure, and that forces more air into the engine to create more power. However, that's a lot of fun, but eventually you're going to see a red light or a cop or whatever, and most of us are going to come off the throttle. And when you do that, all of the boost pressure that's built up in the piping and in your intake manifold going up into the engine is going to need to go somewhere, and that's where a blow-off valve comes in handy. Now, it's really important to have some sort of method for this air to be bled off. Something that a lot of people ask me about are boost spikes and different things that they see in their car, and typically that happens between a shift, and it just looks really crazy in your logs, but the reason for that is because the injectors are shutting off while the car is trying to manage the excess boost in the intake tract. So your throttle is going to close and the boost pressure inside of your charge pipe is going to spike up until it's able to effectively vent that out. If it can't get rid of that excess pressure, then you can potentially damage things like your turbo or your throttle body and things like that. So a lot of turbo cars have a blow-off valve in order to bleed off that pressure. And when you lift off the throttle, the blow-off valve will open and all of the excess pressure in your intake tract will vent out to atmosphere. But that's not really an efficient way to do it because when you open up the blow-off valve, all of that horsepower just vents out to the atmosphere and gets wasted on a VR30 or something. So what a lot of modern engines have switched to is a diverter valve. And what a diverter valve does is it actually recirculates the pressurized air back into the intake. So that way, if you come off the throttle and then get right back on it, you already have a little bit of airflow going through to help reduce your lag. It decreases your spool time and basically just makes the car more responsive. So that's a really nice way to do it, and it's a little more efficient than just bleeding it out to atmosphere. Now that was all good and well, but BMW decided to take it up a notch and completely delete the diverter valve. So if you have a B58, you don't have a blow-off valve, you don't have a diverter valve. What it does is it uses a combination of the electronic wastegate as well as Valvetronic in order to basically just let all that pressurized air flow through the cylinder head and out the exhaust. So that's how we bleed off our pressure. We don't have any external controllers or anything to manage the air for us. It's all basically just pumped through the engine and out the exhaust. Now this is really important to understand because whether you have a blow-off valve or a diverter valve or a complicated system like on the B58, the car is always trying to model how much air is coming into the engine, and it uses that calculation to determine how much fuel should be injected every time the engine turns over. So if the car doesn't have an accurate way to estimate that, it's going to spray the wrong amount of fuel. It's going to need to lean on its adaptations in order to adjust it and get the right amount of fuel in the engine. And the more that you lean on those adaptations is the higher risk you can run into lean or rich situations that can potentially damage your engine or cause other issues. So it's really important that whatever your car starts with, you either use that same system or modify the system, being fully aware that you might need to modify your engine tuning to compensate for it. So basically, to keep it simple, if you don't want to mess up your fueling, stick with what your car came with. However, we do have a couple options available for the B58 that allow you to use a blow-off valve without putting too much risk on your system. Now, the first one was created several years ago by Juan over at Big Boost. A big shout out to him. For you guys that don't know, he has an M240i shop car that has been really blazing the trail for the B58 community. He was the first one to hit 600 horsepower, 700 horsepower, all the way up to 1,000 horsepower in a BMW B58. And along that way, he had to basically engineer a lot of different solutions for issues he was running into because nobody else had pushed the platform that far. And specifically when he was going for upwards of 1,000 horsepower, he found that the DME control and the logic that it used to cycle excess air through the engine was not enough to bleed off the pressure we have. So it was really important that he came up with a solution to bleed off the excess air so that he could keep everything under control. So he developed a blow-off valve kit that actually pairs with his Big Boost turbo kits. You can pair it to the same charge pipe adapter that comes with any of his aftermarket turbo kits. And this will allow you to use a blow-off valve with your B58. Now it does come with a solenoid that helps control how the blow-off valve works. It's only going to bleed off as much air as it needs to, so it's not going to open all the way all the time. Maybe there are situations where you just go on the throttle for a short period of time, it only builds up a small amount of boost, and then when you lift off the throttle, it'll only crack open a little bit. Whereas maybe you're going wide open throttle for a quarter-mile pass, hitting 40 plus PSI, in those situations, it might open up more because it knows it needs to support the engine's tuning better in order to bleed off enough air quick enough. So this is a really unique solution. I think it's really cool that he came up with it. And there are a couple people that have used it. You can find some different videos around on YouTube and things like that. I will link those down in the description if you guys are curious about how it sounds. Now, the other option came a little more recently from Berger Motorsports. And theirs is a little bit different because it's not designed with aftermarket turbo kits in mind. This one is basically designed just like the stock charge pipe. So with their charge pipe, you have an option either to get it just like OEM, or you can get it with the blow-off valve adapter. So that means it'll work with the stock turbo or any hybrid turbo that's designed to fit just like stock. This blow-off valve is also different because it doesn't have that external solenoid to help control how much the blow-off valve opens. So it incorporates a boost tap that just references how much boost is in the intake manifold. And while you're driving the car, that basically controls how much the blow-off valve opens and when it opens. Again, they've got a couple different videos online for how that sounds, so I'll post that in the description as well. Now, none of these are really something that I'm interested in at this time just because our cars work really well with most scenarios for managing boost, especially if you're using an OEM style turbo kit that uses the electronic wastegate. It's really simple and easy to just let the DME manage everything. Until you're pushing like upwards of 800 or maybe even 900 plus horsepower, I really don't see this being a limiting factor where you have to have a blow-off valve. So if you do this, you're mostly doing it just for the sound or maybe the extra bling in your engine bay. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to make this video to share the different options with you guys. A lot of you guys ask if they're even available or why there are so few available. So hopefully this explains why most people really don't need one. And hopefully this can help you decide if you want to go that route on your car. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.